My son and his wife threw me out of the house on Christmas Eve. No warning. Just the sound of the door closing behind me, and the lock turning like I was a stranger who didn't belong there anymore. I'm 76 years old. And I was standing outside in my slippers, in the middle of December, holding nothing but my coat and a heart that didn't understand how it got here. The Christmas lights were still glowing inside. I could see the tree through the window. The same tree I paid for. The same living room where I taught my son how to walk. Where I kissed scraped knees and stayed up all night when he had the flu. Now I wasn't welcome. An hour earlier, we'd been sitting at the dinner table. My daughter-in-law was talking. She always talks about bills, stress, how everything is so expensive now. Every sentence landed closer to me, like she was aiming. Then she smiled. That tight, careful smile. "Mom," she said, "we think it's time you find somewhere else to stay." I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. My son didn't laugh. He just stared at his plate like it was more important than the woman who gave him life. "Just for a while," he said. "Until things calm down." I asked the only question that mattered. "Where am I supposed to go?" She shrugged. "Not cruel. Worse. Casual. You're strong. You'll figure it out." That's how people talk when they've already decided you're no longer their problem. She opened the door before I could argue. My son didn't stop her. Didn't even look at me when I stepped outside. And then click. The door locked. I stood there for a second, stunned. Like maybe this was a test and they'd open it back up. They didn't. I knocked once. Soft. Respectful. Nothing. I knocked again. Harder. From inside I heard her say, "Don't open it." And my son listened. That was the moment something broke inside me. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, like old glass. I started walking because standing still hurt too much. Snow was falling, gentle and cruel at the same time. Houses glowed warm with laughter and music while I passed by like a ghost. Every step felt heavier than the last. How does a mother become this easy to discard? I ended up sitting on a cold bus bench 3 blocks away, wrapping my coat tighter, trying to keep my hands from shaking. And that's when I realized something important. They thought I was weak, because I was old. They thought I had nowhere to go. They thought I would disappear quietly and be grateful for whatever crumbs were left. They forgot who I was before I was mom. Before I was grandma. They forgot I built a life from nothing. And they had no idea that throwing me out on Christmas wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of their mistake. I sat there on that freezing bench, watching my breath turn into fog, and I thought about one thing they never bothered to ask me. What I still owned. They thought kicking me out meant I had nothing left. No power. No control. No place in this world. But as the snow settled on my coat, I remembered something that made my hands stop shaking. That house. It's still in my name. Every account. Every document. Every signature they never bothered to understand. And my son. He thinks Christmas was the day he finally got rid of me. What he doesn't know yet is this. Christmas was the day I stopped being his mother and started protecting myself. And when I stand back up, they're going to wish they had never opened that door in the first place. The next morning, I make one phone call, and everything they planned begins to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I sat on that cold bus bench until the sky went from black to that sad, washed-out gray that mornings get in winter. My bones ached. My fingers were stiff. But my mind was wide awake. Because once the shock wears off, something else takes its place. Clarity. People think old age makes you confused. Slower. Softer. They're wrong. Age strips things down. You stop wasting energy on denial. By sunrise, I wasn't asking why anymore. I was asking how long. A church 2 blocks away opened its doors around 6. I didn't beg. I never have. I just walked in, sat near a heater, and wrapped my hands around a cup of weak coffee someone placed in front of me like kindness was routine. They kept calling me ma'am. Not grandma. Not poor thing. Just ma'am. It felt good. Around 8, I asked to use their phone. My hands didn't shake when I dialed. I didn't call my son. I didn't call family. I called my bank. "I need to check on my accounts," I said calmly, like I wasn't wearing the same coat I'd slept in. Like my world hadn't cracked open less than 12 hours earlier. The woman on the line pulled things up. Asked me security questions I'd answered 100 times before. Then she paused. "Mrs. Carter," she said slowly. "Did you authorize a request to add another name to your primary account?" My stomach dropped, but my voice stayed steady. "No," I said. "I did not." Another pause. Longer this time. "There was an attempt," she said carefully. "Yesterday afternoon. It didn't go through. Yesterday afternoon. While I was folding napkins. While my daughter-in-law was smiling. While my son couldn't look me in the eye. I thanked her and asked her to lock everything down. All of it. Accounts. Access. Alerts. When I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long moment. So that was it. The eviction wasn't about space. Or stress. Or tight finances. It was about access. They didn't just want me gone. They wanted me quiet. I made one more call from that church phone. This one took longer to connect. My lawyer. The same man who handled my will after my husband passed. The same man who once told me, "You're sharper than people expect. Don't let anyone rush you." When he answered, I didn't cry. I didn't explain everything. I just said this. "My son and his wife put me out of the house last night, and I think they were planning something." There was a silence on the other end. Not surprise. Recognition. "Can you come in today?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I can." He arranged a ride. Didn't ask questions. Didn't lecture. Just acted. By noon, I was sitting in a warm office, holding documents I hadn't looked at in years. Deeds. Statements. Titles. My name was still there. Front and center. And the look on my lawyer's face told me something important. They had been close. Close enough to scare me. Not close enough to win. "They tried to move fast," he said, tapping a paper. "Too fast. That's where people make mistakes." I nodded. I'd made a life out of noticing those. He explained things calmly. Protective orders. Financial blocks. Legal boundaries. Then he looked at me and asked something that mattered more than all of it. "Do you want to go back to the house?" I thought about the locked door. The silence. My son's eyes on his plate. "No," I said. "Not yet." Because revenge doesn't always start with confrontation. Sometimes it starts with preparation. That evening, I stayed with a woman from the church. A spare room. Clean sheets. No questions. Just soup and quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself feel it. The betrayal. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just heavy. But beneath it, something else was growing. Resolve. They thought Christmas was my breaking point. They didn't realize it was my turning point. Because while they were probably opening gifts, telling themselves I'd figure it out, I was putting things in motion. Legal things. Permanent things. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I would make a call that would change the balance completely. One they weren't expecting. As I turned off the lamp, I smiled to myself for the first time since Christmas. They thought throwing me out meant they had time. They were wrong. Because the next call I make isn't to a lawyer. And it isn't to my son. It's to someone who knows exactly how to freeze everything they touched. And once that happens, there's no unlocking the door back to the life they tried to steal. I woke up before the sun. Not because I was anxious. Because I was ready. When you reach my age, you learn the difference between fear and focus. Fear makes noise. Focus is quiet. I sat at the little desk in that spare room, wrapped in a borrowed sweater, and made the call I'd been thinking about all night. It wasn't to my son. It wasn't to my lawyer. It was to Adult Protective Services. People hear that name and think it's dramatic. Harsh. Like you're trying to destroy someone's life. But here's the truth they don't tell you. That system exists for people like me. For when family crosses a line and calls it help. The woman on the phone spoke gently, but she listened carefully. I told her everything. The eviction. The attempted bank access. The timing. Christmas Eve. She didn't interrupt. Didn't rush me. When I finished, she said something that made my spine straighten. "Mrs. Carter, this qualifies as elder financial abuse and abandonment." Abandonment. That word hit harder than the cold ever did. She told me what would happen next. A report. a case number, a temporary financial hold, a welfare check. Your assets will be flagged, she said. No changes can be made without review. In other words, frozen. I thanked her and hung up, my hands steady, my breath calm. By 9 o'clock, my lawyer called me back. I just got notified, he said. Did you contact APS? Yes, I said. I did. He exhaled slowly. Not annoyed. Impressed. That was the right move, he said. Anything they try now will raise red flags. Good. Let it. By late morning, my phone buzzed. My son. I didn't answer. Then a text. Mom, why is the bank calling me? What did you do? I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed one sentence. I protected myself. Nothing else. A minute later, the phone rang again. I let it ring. When you've spent decades explaining yourself, silence becomes a language of its own. That afternoon, my daughter-in-law finally reached out. Not to apologize. Not to ask if I was okay. To accuse. You're overreacting. You're making us look bad. This is a family matter. Family. That word gets used like a shield when people don't want consequences. I didn't respond. Because while they were panicking, calling banks, making excuses, something else was happening. Quietly. The house. The house they kicked me out of? Still mine. APS had already contacted the county office. A notice was placed. No sale. No transfer. No financing. Nothing moves when a file like mine is open. And that's when I realized something almost funny. They had thrown me out. But they were the ones trapped. Trapped in paperwork. Trapped in explanations. Trapped in lies they now had to repeat carefully. That evening, my lawyer came by in person. He placed a folder on the table and looked me straight in the eye. They can't touch anything, he said. Not the house. Not the money. Not even utilities without approval. I nodded. Good, I said. Because I'm not done yet. He raised an eyebrow. Just slightly. What's next, he asked. I thought of my son's face when he couldn't log into an account. My daughter-in-law's tight smile cracking under pressure. I'm going home, I said. Not to beg. Not to argue. To reclaim. But not tonight. Tonight, I wanted them to sit in that house. My house. Wondering what they'd triggered. Because the hardest part of revenge isn't the action. It's the waiting. And tomorrow. Tomorrow, I would show up when they least expected me. They thought freezing accounts was the worst of it. They had no idea. Because the next time I walk up to that front door, I won't be knocking. I went back to the house at noon. Not early enough to feel sneaky. Not late enough for them to leave. Right on time. I sat in the car for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel, looking at the front door like it was an old photograph. Same paint. Same wreath. Same welcome mat that said home in big, friendly letters. Funny word. I took out my keys. Yes. My keys. They never asked for them back. Never thought I'd use them again. The lock turned smoothly. No resistance. No drama. The door opened. And just like that, I was back inside. The heat hit my face first. Then the smell, cinnamon candles, coffee, the faint soap I'd been using for years before my daughter-in-law decided hers was better. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. Click. I didn't rush. I took my coat off slowly, hung it on the same hook I always used. I heard movement in the kitchen. Then my daughter-in-law appeared. She froze. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. What are you doing here? She snapped. I smiled. Not sweet. Not cruel. Just calm. I live here, I said. My son came in behind her, eyes wide like he'd seen a ghost. Mom, he started. I raised my hand. No, I said. You don't get to start. They stood there, confused, angry, unsure which emotion to grab first. I walked past them into the living room and sat down on the couch. My couch. I won't be staying long, I said. I just came to pick up my things. Her jaw tightened. You can't just walk in. I can, I replied. Legally. Financially. Completely. My son swallowed. The bank called me this morning. I know, I said. And APS, he added, his voice low. Yes. Silence filled the room like thick smoke. She crossed her arms. You're trying to punish us. I looked at her then. Really looked. No, I said. I'm correcting you. I stood up and walked toward the hallway. Toward my bedroom. She stepped in front of me. You're not going in there. That's when I laughed. Not loud. Just once. That room, I said, is still legally mine. Everything in it is mine, including the bed you sleep in. My son's face went pale. I stepped around her and opened the door. They'd changed things. Moved drawers. Replaced my nightstand. Tried to erase me. But the closet still held my clothes. My boxes. My papers. I reached for the small lockbox on the top shelf. Still there. Good. I turned back to them. By the way, I said casually, the house is under investigation now. No changes. No transfers. No funny business. Her voice cracked. You're ruining us. No, I said. You did that when you locked me out. I packed one bag. Slowly. Deliberately. Then I walked back to the living room. This is how this will go, I said. I won't fight you. I won't argue. But you will not touch a single thing without oversight. My son looked like he wanted to say something. Apologize. Explain. I didn't give him the chance. I picked up my bag and walked to the door. Before leaving, I turned around. Oh, I said, almost as an afterthought. I've changed the beneficiaries. That landed hard. I closed the door behind me and locked it from the outside. This time, I turned the lock. They think that was the revenge. It wasn't. Because next, they're going to learn what it feels like to live in a house that doesn't belong to them. While waiting to be told when to leave, people think revenge is loud. Yelling. Slamming doors. Threats. Drama. That's what young people do. What I did instead was wait. I stayed with the church lady for a few more days. Warm bed. Quiet mornings. Enough distance to think clearly. Enough space to breathe. Meanwhile, that house? It was mine on paper. And theirs in panic. My lawyer called me every morning like clockwork. They tried to change the utilities, he said one day. Denied. They asked about refinancing. Flagged. They wanted to list the house for sale. Blocked. Each sentence was its own small victory. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just listened. Because the real power wasn't taking things away. It was watching them realize they never owned anything to begin with. My son finally came to see me. He showed up at the church one afternoon, standing awkwardly near the doorway like he didn't know where to put his hands. I didn't stand up. I didn't hug him. I waited. Mom, he said, voice low. We need to talk. No, Iraplia. You need to listen. He sat down slowly. We're under a lot of pressure, he said. You don't understand how hard things are right now. I tilted my head. You understand, I said, that you locked your mother out on Christmas? He swallowed. That pressure, I continued, didn't stop you then. Silence. He tried again. She didn't mean it like that. I know exactly how she meant it. That's the thing about living a long time. You recognize patterns. She's scared, he said. We both are. So was I said. Out in the cold. Remember? His shoulders slumped. What do you want? He asked. There it was. Not sorry. Not are you okay. Just what do you want? I want you out of my house, I said calmly. His head snapped up. You can't be serious. I am. He laughed once, nervous. Where would we go? I met his eyes. That, I said gently, is something you'll have to figure out. Just like he told me. The eviction notice went out 2 days later. Formal. Legal. No emotion attached. 30 days. That's all the law required. My daughter-in-law called me screaming when she got it. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. Long ones. Angry ones. Then tearful ones. I didn't delete them. I let them sit. Because every message was proof. By the end of the week, neighbors started noticing. Boxes by the door. Tension in the air. The sound of arguing through walls that used to hold laughter. I drove by once. Just once. Their car was there. Lights on. Curtains shut. My house felt heavy even from the street. Good. That night, I sat in bed and thought about how strange it was. I hadn't raised my voice once. Hadn't insulted anyone. Hadn't demanded apologies. I'd simply stopped allowing myself to be used. And somehow, that was the cruelest thing of all. They think 30 days is a long time. They don't know what else is already in motion. Because before they leave my house, they're going to lose something they never thought I'd touch. I didn't touch their things. Not the furniture. Not the clothes. Not the dishes they'd replace mine with. That's what they expected. They thought revenge meant breaking things, taking things, humiliating them the way they humiliated me. But the most powerful things in a family? You can't pack them in boxes. 3 days after the eviction notice went out, I made another appointment with my lawyer. This one was quiet. Private. No urgency in his voice this time. Just curiosity. What would you like to change? He asked, opening my file. I took a breath. My will, I said. And my trust. He nodded slowly. That's a big decision. No, I said. It's a clear one. I told him everything. Christmas night. The lock. The bench. The bank call. APS. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back and said something I'll never forget. You're not cutting him off, he said. You're correcting a mistake. Exactly. I didn't erase my son. I rewrote the future. The house. Placed into an irrevocable trust. My accounts? Protected, locked, monitored. And the beneficiary? Not him. My granddaughter. The only one who ever called just to ask how I was doing. The only one who sent handwritten cards. The only one who didn't treat me like a resource. When the paperwork was done, my lawyer slid it across the desk. Once this is filed, he said, there's no undoing it. I signed. My hand didn't shake. That same evening, my son called again. This time I answered. Mom, he said quickly. We need to fix this. This is going too far. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. It already went too far, I said. On Christmas. There was a pause. Then anger. You're doing this to hurt us. No, I said. I'm doing this to protect myself. You're choosing sides, he snapped. I already did, I replied. When you locked the door. His voice dropped. Dangerous now. You're making a mistake. I leaned back in my chair. You made yours first. Silence. Then the question I knew was coming. What about the house? He asked. I let that sit. What about it? I said. Another pause. Longer. You wouldn't really take it from us, he said, unsure now. I spoke carefully, calmly. I never gave it to you. He hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, my granddaughter came to see me. She sat across from me at the small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug, eyes sharp. Dad's freaking out, she said. He thinks you're bluffing. He smiled her. I don't bluff, I said. I document. I told her what I'd done. She stared at me, stunned. Grandma, she whispered. Are you sure? I reached across the table and held her hand. I'm not punishing him, I said. I'm rewarding the truth. Tears filled her eyes. No one had ever chosen her like that before. That afternoon, my daughter-in-law showed up unannounced. This time she didn't scream. She cried. Said they were scared. Said they didn't mean it. Said families forgive. I listened. Quietly. Then I said the only thing that mattered. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. She didn't understand that. Most people don't. By the end of the week, the house felt different. Not empty. Not sad. Resolved. The 30 days were almost up. Boxes lined the hallway. The garage door stayed open longer than usual. They were leaving. And for the first time since Christmas, I slept deeply. Because I hadn't just taken my house back. I had taken my place back. They think losing the house is the worst part. It isn't. Because once they're gone, everyone is going to hear why. And when the truth comes out, there will be no locking the door on it. I never planned to tell anyone. Not the neighbors. Not the church. Not the rest of the family. I was raised to believe private pain should stay private. But silence is exactly what lets people like my son rewrite the story. And that's what he tried to do. The week before the move-out deadline, I started getting messages. Is everything okay? We heard you're confused. Your son is worried about you. Confused. That word again. It's the favorite weapon people use on older women. So I did something different. I told the truth. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just plainly. It started small. A conversation with the pastor's wife. A phone call with my sister. A quiet explanation to a neighbor who asked why there were boxes in my garage. I was locked out of my own house on Christmas, I said. And I protected myself. That was it. I didn't insult. I didn't exaggerate. I let facts do the work. And facts spread faster than lies. Within days, the tone changed. People stopped asking if I was okay, and started asking what they had done. My daughter-in-law stopped answering her phone. My son showed up one last time. Not angry. Not pleading. Panicked. You're destroying our reputation, he said. I looked at him. No. Iraplia. Your actions are. He rubbed his face. Family shouldn't air dirty laundry. Family shouldn't throw their mother out, I said. He didn't argue, because there was nothing left to twist. The day they moved out, I stood in the doorway, not blocking them, not helping them, just watching. Boxes scraped against the floor. Furniture bumped into walls. Every sound echoed. My daughter-in-law didn't look at me. My son did. He looked smaller than I remembered. Before he left, he said quietly, I never thought you'd do this. I nodded. I never thought you'd make me. When the truck pulled away, the house went silent. A different kind of quiet. Not lonely. Honest. That evening, my granddaughter came over with takeout and a bottle of sparkling cider. We sat on the living room floor, backs against the couch, eating straight from the containers. You okay? She asked. I thought about it. Yes, I said. I really am. Because for the first time, the story was straight. No confusión. No manipulación. No pretending. Just truth. And truth has weight. They think it's over now. They're wrong. Because what happens after someone loses everything is when they show you who they really are. And my son isn't done yet. It was quiet for almost 2 weeks. No calls. No messages. No drama. That's how I knew something was coming. People like my son don't disappear. They regroup. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the knock came. Not loud. Not polite. Familiar. I didn't open the door right away. I looked through the peephole. Him. Alone this time. No wife. No performance. I opened the door just enough to stand in the frame. What do you want? I asked. He exhaled like he'd been holding it in for days. Can we talk? He said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. We are, I said. That surprised him. He looked older. Tired. The confidence he used to wear so easily was gone. I'm in trouble, he said. I waited. The credit's ruined. The lease fell through. She's blaming me. His voice cracked. I didn't think it would end like this. I folded my arms. It didn't have to, I said. He looked at the ground. I was scared. So was I replied. Standing outside on Christmas. That landed. He finally looked at me then. I need help, he said. Just temporarily. There it was. The cycle. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. His eyes widened. You can't just turn your back on me. I didn't, I said. You turned your back on me first. He stepped closer. I'm your son. And I'm your mother, I replied. Not your safety net. He was quiet for a long moment. Then anger flared. You're choosing money over family. I smiled, sad but steady. No, I said. I'm choosing dignity. His shoulders sagged. He looked lost. For a second, I almost reached for him. Almost. But love without boundaries is just permission. I raised you to stand on your own, I said. This is you standing. He swallowed hard. Is this it? He asked. Are you done with me? I met his eyes. I'm done being used, I said. He stepped back. Then he nodded once, sharp and bitter. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, I replied. He walked away without looking back. I went inside and locked the door. Not out of fear. Out of choice. That night, I slept with the windows open, listening to the house breathe. For the first time since Christmas, I felt safe. I thought that was the last time I'd see him. I was wrong. Because some people don't come back for forgiveness. They come back for something else. I should have known peace wouldn't last. Not with a son who believed everything was still negotiable. 3 nights after he came by, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. Mrs. Carter, a man said, professional, cautious. This is Officer Reynolds with the County Police Department. My stomach tightened, but I didn't panic. Yes, I said. We've received a complaint regarding your property. Your son claims you're being manipulated, and that you may not be acting of sound mind. There it was. The final card. I closed my eyes for half a second. He called the police on you? My granddaughter asked later, furious when I told her. Not just the police. He was trying to have me declared unfit, confused, vulnerable, easily controlled. The officer arrived the next morning. He was young, respectful, careful with his words. We sat at my kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. He asked simple questions. My name, the date, my address, who the president was. Then harder ones. Why I changed my will. Why I evicted my son. Why there was conflict. I didn't get defensive. I told the truth. About Christmas. About the lock. About APS. About the bank. I handed him documentation. Organized. Labeled. Time-stamped. He read quietly. After a while, he looked up at me and smiled slightly. Ma'am, he said. You're one of the clearest people I've spoken to all week. I laughed softly. That's what I keep telling them. He closed his notebook. This complaint is unfounded, he said. I'll note that. When he left, I sat very still. Because what my son had just tried to do, that crossed a line you don't come back from. That afternoon my lawyer called. He overplayed his hand, he said. Trying to declare you incompetent? After everything? That helps us. Good, I said. Because I'm done protecting him. I signed one final document that day. A no-contact order. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. I mailed him a single letter. No emotion. No explanation. Just one sentence. Do not contact me again. 2 days later, my granddaughter received a message from him. She's turned everyone against me. My granddaughter replied with something simple. You did that yourself. I didn't hear from him again. And for the first time, I knew it was really over. I thought the ending would feel like victory. It didn't. It felt like clarity. And in the final part, I'll tell you what I learned when everything finally went quiet. When everything finally went quiet, it felt strange. Not empty. Not sad. Just still. No ringing phone. No footsteps that made my shoulders tense. No wondering what someone wanted from me. Just mornings with sunlight on the kitchen floor, and evenings where the house settled the way an old body does. Slowly, honestly. People think winning feels loud. It doesn't. Winning feels like breathing again. I planted flowers in the spring. White ones. Simple. I took my time with them. No rushing. No fixing mistakes for anyone else. My granddaughter came by every Sunday. We cooked together. Laughed. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. And that was okay. People asked me if I missed my son. Of course I did. Love doesn't shut off just because trust breaks. But I stopped confusing love with obligation. That was the lesson. I didn't stop being a mother. I stopped being available for harm. I forgave him quietly, for myself, not for him. Forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. It means locking it and keeping the key. Sometimes late at night, I think about that Christmas bench. The cold. The way I felt invisible. And I realized something important. That night didn't take my dignity. It revealed it. They thought my age made me weak. What it really gave me was perspective. I know who I am now. A woman who built a life. A woman who protected it. A woman who refused to disappear quietly. If you're reading this and someone has tried to erase you, because you're old or kind or tired, hear me. You are not a burden. You are not replaceable. You are not powerless. And it's never too late to stand up. Even if you have to do it slowly. Because sometimes the strongest thing a grandmother can do is choose herself. This story isn't just mine, it's a lot of people's reality. Tap like, subscribe for more powerful stories, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place?